Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 484. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and highly talented New England artist and illustrator, Bret Herholz.
You're being too kind. Thank you.
How's it going, Bret?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. And so it was a few months ago we met, and we were at the Rail City Comic Con
That's
and the
right.
Rail City Comic Fest, and you were right across the aisle from us where I was set up, and
Yeah.
I fell in love with your artwork. Your artwork is fantastic,
Oh, thank you.
and so what I'm going to do for the sake of our viewers who will be watching this on YouTube will be able to see some of the artwork. And
Okay.
for our listeners out there, you would have definitely, and it'll be in the show notes, go to Bret Herholz, Bret M Herholz.com, and it'll be spelled out for you, and check out his artwork. If you're driving, don't do that while you're driving. Don't pull out,
Good point.
but definitely listen, as you listen to this and come back and check out some of the work that we'll be talking about here. But first, I guess for folks meeting you for the first time, how do you describe what you do, Bret?
I guess I'm an illustrator graphic novelist because it's like I do a bit of writing and it's like I do my own original work, but I also have done adaptations of other people's work, such as like Sherlock Holmes or Edgar Allan Poe, or even have done collaborations with people like I did a collaboration with the author Paul Mars on his YA book called The Ninnies, as well as
Okay.
another YA series by Annie Castle called Loogie the Booger Genie Prince of Pranks. So I did the artwork and cover art for that. That was both were very fun series.
When did you kind of first realize that you were kind of wired for comics and not just drawing? Because you've studied sequential art, and
Yeah.
can you also explain to people that sequential art isn't necessarily comics? There's other things that sequential art also covers.
Well, as a kid, when I was younger, at least, for the longest time I wanted to be a comic strip artist, but I was kind of wanting to do that at a time when newspaper comic strips were starting to die out, anyways. So, but I was very influenced at the time by artists like Walt Kelly's Pogo and Burke Breathitt's Bloom County and Calvin and Hobbes, and comics like that made me want to be a newspaper comic strip artist. But it was really when I was like in maybe junior high school, going into high school, that I really started to fall in love with comics, and especially graphic novels. But I think the first few comics and graphic novels I remember reading, it was probably around the time the '89 Batman movie came out. It was like I started like looking at stuff like The Dark Knight Returns, The Killing Joke, and the series A Death in the Family, which was the story in which the Joker kills the second Robert, Jason Todd. But that was sort of really what started getting me down the path of comic books. And as I it was definitely in high school that I really, really wanted. I thought I really wanted to start, you know, doing that professionally, at least, or at least try to do that professionally. I liked the whole idea of marrying visuals and words together. Sort of the best parts of doing a movie and writing a novel. So, and, hence the whole idea of a graphic novel. And it wasn't, and it was, it's like from, like the mainstream comics. Then I started to like sort of discover a lot of like the independent comics, like Strangers in Paradise and Dave Sim's Cerebus, which I absolutely loved for the longest time until he kind of fell off the rails. But it was a lot of his like, the comic art style and his cross hatching really kind of sort of had an effect on my own style. I love the way, especially the artist Girardi worked with on the backgrounds. I absolutely loved his background art, and like the amount of detail he put into that.
Your work kind of spans pen and ink, watercolor, and digital.
Yes.
How do you decide what medium fits a project then?
Oh, well, a lot of the times with digital digital coloring, I tend to do that quite a bit with my prints, because it's easier for me. And also with the digital colors show up better on a scanner than watercolors do. I've tried to scan watercolors so many times, and it never looks just right on a scanner. But with digital, it's like it's kind of a give and take. When I did a book like say the Black Dandy Strikes, which was a, a a collaboration I did with a friend of mine, Andy Fish, years ago, and I decided recently, the last few years, to revive the character. I decided to use digital colors because it was sort of easier for me to do, and also I wanted to kind of give it a look like the movie, the revi or the restored version of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which the original the director originally had the negatives of the film, or the film painted in different sepia colors, and so I did that with that book. I had each few pages of that story, I sort of did different sepias to kind of emulate my admiration for that film, which was I have a love for silent movies, and that was one that really inspired me. So inspired my
Okay.
work.
What's one craft trick you rely on to make a page kind of read smoothly?
That's a good question. Sometimes I have to, like, a lot of the time. Sometimes I just have to like completely redo a panel, or I've redone a page. So, but it's like with when I've screwed up a panel, I've just had to just take another piece of Bristol board, draw it, and paste right on the page. So, but
Okay.
yeah, gosh, I don't know how to answer that question.
So where do you sweat the most then? Is it the thumbnails? Is it the inks, the lettering, or is it a revision? Where do you sweat the most?
Oh, I'm actually really bad at keeping a sketchbook or doing thumbnails. A lot of the times, what I'll do is I'll work on I'll write out a script. Most of my scripts I actually write it, dialogue with words, and with scene descriptions for myself. Most, every artist has a different style of doing script writing. Some do kind of like the classic Marvel comics, where Stan Lee would basically write out a short synopsis, and then Jack Kirby would probably be the one to fill it in with the panels, and what the characters are saying. With me, I tend to like script it. I tend to like really lay it out in the scripting department. Then when I take the script, I go right to my desk, and then I don't even do really roughs or thumbnails, which is kind of probably a bad thing to do when if you're an artist. But I tend to go right to the Bristol board and just start working on pages. But a lot of the
Okay.
times it's like I do try to lay it out with pencil, but it's like I do most of my yeah, I would say most of my sweating I do when I'm just putting working with just with the inking. A lot of my details in that start coming with the inking. Most of the time my pencils can, I try to get it so I know what I where to put things, but most of the time my penciling can be fairly light and rough. It's the inking side I sort of work the longest on.
So you mentioned earlier that you do a lot with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
But you also have your own unique IP characters like the Black Dandy and Polly and Handgraves,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
If I'm going to, so if somebody asks you, and they go to your table at a con and they see all your books, and they ask you, where do I start? Which book do you point them out to
Oh my
first?
goodness, that's a difficult one too. With Polly and Handgraves is interesting because that was a book I originally did myself
Mm,
years ago, but it's like recent. It's like in the last few years, I kind of wanted to redo it because there was a lot of stuff when I had illustrated and written it. There was a lot of stuff because it was loosely based on a true crime, and there was so many parts of the original crime that when I kind of missed out when I was doing the original one. So not only did I want to like redo the book, but I felt like I wanted to work with another artist and another artist style. And I had gone to college with Daniel Miller, who did the artwork for Polly and Handgraves. So we ended up working on it together, and I thought in the work we did together, I think it turned out to be a much better book than what I originally put out. But as far as a book that I would say was one say, if you're going to, discover my work at first, it's kind of a toss up between my first graphic novel, Diary of the Black Widow, which I have available now in the Strychnine and Spaghetti Strand Slipknots, which contains, Diary of the Black Widow, as well as its sort of follow up, the Spaghetti Strand Murders. And the only reason I say it's a kind of a follow up, a sequel, is because both stories contain a detective inspector character I created, which was kind of I was kind of inspired by Stephen Fry's character from Gosford Park. He played kind of a rather inept detective inspector in that movie. So it's kind
Hmm.
of like a cross between that and a lot of like the Monty Python, characters like either John Cleese or Graham Chapman would play. Inspector so and so of the yard would come, busting in the door and be completely wrong on a lot of stuff. So that was sort of, as I tell a lot of people who, when they buy a copy of the book, I tell them it's kind of a cross between Agatha Christie and Monty Python, or Agatha, or if it's a deep dive, just say a cross between Agatha Christie and Spike Milligan. So
Huh. That's a pretty good way to
yeah.
describe it.
But that's the
Um,
one I usually kind of point people towards if they want to kind of get a taste of my work. Just where a good starting point. So
so with Polly and Handgraves, what's your favorite part about writing characters who kind of bounce off each other?
oh well, with them it was like my idea was to write. It's like I always felt like the woman was always like the secondary character in these in those sort of stories where it's like even in the Thin Man, it was like Nick and Nora Charles, or it's always the woman's always second. And in this one, I wanted the woman to be first. I wanted her to be the main character, and so I came up with Polly, who is kind of like is a mystery writer, amateur sleuth, and a clairvoyant, and her manservant or valet Handgraves, who's sort of her man. It was kind of like a Jeeves if Jeeves was it worked in like what James Bond did, sort of a cross
Right.
between Jeeves and James Bond. So
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Yeah. So, what makes noir and mystery so fun to do in comic form instead of prose, would you say?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it's just having the not only having the dialogue, but just having those visuals. Not only just reading a misty a spooky mystery misty field. You actually see the spooky misty field. That the
Mhm.
character is standing in. Wondering if there's something out there. And seeing like the silhouette in the fog, or the ghost in the mirror. Rather than describing the ghost in the mirror. In prose.
Right. You've taught art, and
Yeah.
so how has teaching sharpened your own storytelling instincts then?
Ah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think it just sort of in teaching you have to kind of explain. You have to sort of explain to the class how to go about doing something. I mean, I've taught comic art classes, so it's like giving that explanation, but also sort of giving them a little wiggle room where they can use their own creativity. And I suppose with some of my stories, it's like giving the audience a little bit. Actually, a good example of that is like with the Sherlock Holmes story I did based on the Gillette play Alice Faulkner. Is the original play, it had Sherlock Holmes falling in love, whereas in my version I sort of gave the audience enough of an idea, thinking it could have gone either way. Did he fall in love, or did he not fall in love? I kind of left that up to the audience. So it's like
Mhm.
giving them enough giving them enough information, but also not like not overwhelming them with the information.
What is your 1-minute fix when a student or a creator feels stuck?
Oh, I don't know, that's a good question. But usually it's like with me, when I suppose when I get stuck, it's like, just kind of walking away from it and just kind of taking a breather, and then kind of coming back to it when, suddenly you get, when inspiration strikes, or find, just like maybe working on another quick project.
Right.
I found that actually really helped me when I was working on the current Sherlock Holmes, when I did the case of the haunted chateau, which was based on a Basil Rathbone thing. I actually went away from that for a little while to work on another script that was I was doing a short Doctor Who story for Long Island Who. So I worked on that and then came back to it, and it kind of helped. I think it helped out. So it's like maybe sometimes
Right.
walking away from a project might kind of help, help unblock things.
What's the most important lesson you've learned about consistency as a creator?
Oh, what have I learned about consistency? Oh, actually, that is a good question. But I think it's just mostly just like it's like mostly kind of trying to quality writing, just keep, it's like just keep the writing quality, and also not, I guess it's the other thing is not getting yourself too high or too low. Whereas like I've read a lot, I've gotten my share of a lot of really bad reviews, and it's like not trying to, it's like not trying to drag yourself down too much reading the bad reviews, but not not dragging yourself up too high reading the praise. It's like sort of trying
Mm.
to keep even keel. I think it's just like I think once you start thinking too high about yourself, then you start becoming a little lazier and a little inconsistent. And believe me, I've gotten some really awful reviews.
Then what does your ideal creative day look like then?
An ideal creative day is like doing at least 1 or 2 pages a day. Usually, I try to. I it's like when I'm in the fix where when I'm trying to get a graphic novel done, I try to at least focus on getting a page or two done a day. So it's like which some which with me it's like I think the best rush was when I did the Telltale Heart, where I actually challenged myself to do. I was going to do for my Inktober, I was going to do one page. I was going to do a 31-page comic book story in 31 days, and
Mm.
I ended up, and so I ended up doing that. So it's like I think giving yourself those set goals, it does help, because it's like if you kind of start, there is a chance one can get a little bit lazy when it comes to that.
So, Bret, if
Yes.
people want to learn more about you and your work, where's the best place they could go to?
Oh, you can definitely go to bretmherholz.com. I have a lot of, I have like, examples of my work on the site. I have portals where you can, if you're interested in buying my books, I have the online portals that you can go find me online. Sometimes I do have art auctions up on eBay, but yeah, if you go on, lulu.com is definitely, I have a lot of my books up there. And the nice thing about Lulu is they do really good quality printing. So it's like one of those things. The biggest problem I've had with like Kindle Direct, or what it was called Create Space back in the day, is that the copy quality always varied.
Mm,
It could either be decent or it could just be awful. Whereas Lulu, it's been consistently very good.
right. And you also have a Patreon page. You want to talk about that?
Yes, actually, I've been kind of lazy on Patreon of late, but it's only because I've been preparing for shows, but it's been a what with Patreon. It's been really nice to sort of chat. That's another part of the challenge where I've actually, when I was doing the recent Sherlock Holmes story, The Haunted Chateau, I offered people, if they joined my Patreon page, for I think it was like something of $3 a month. You'd be able to see,
Right.
pay, it was serialized. You would be able to see a a page a day. You'd be able to read a page a day, and not only that, kind of help out with the print, getting the book into print. So it was kind of like a kind of a hand in hand thing. And I did have something, if for $10, you'd basically be reserving a copy of the book. So I did
Right.
offer that. So I did that with that project, and I did that with the one I did for Chicago. No, sorry, for Long Island Who. I sort of serialized both those stories, and I am probably going to do that in the future with a lot of my graphic novels. Is I will offer it through Patreon first for anybody who becomes a member. And because that was an idea I got when I did a convention in Cape Cod. I was There was a bunch of people who were doing like zines or zine. I don't who were zine creators, and one I was overhearing one of the guys who did that, and that's what they would do. They would actually pub post their stories on Patreon first, and then go to print. I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. If anything else, it helps sort of fund your own your own project. So So
Right.
I
Yeah.
gave it a try with so I did I figured I'd give it a go with the current one I just finished.
Right. Excellent. Bret, this was fantastic. I'm so glad we were able to sit down and talk.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Excellent. And listen, you can come back on when you get some new books coming out. This is
Okay,
exciting.
that sounds great.